Today, April 21st, or maybe it was yesterday, the 20th, and I think this Saturday, or this is Saturday today, maybe it's the 22nd, for the March for Science, which is a really humorous thing, I think, that we've got people out marching for science, as if science is a thing, as if science is something to be celebrated in and of itself. I guess what they're probably marching for are things that people believe in that they think are supported by science, for example, maybe environmentalism or global warming, or some other moral cause, I don't know what, maybe rights. But science isn't any of those things, which I find quite humorous. Science is not a thing at all. Science is a method for discovering things. But you don't celebrate a method, because a method can be used to do anything. One of the signs I saw on the marchers was something like, "Science is the light in the darkness," or "Science brings peace." I'm not sure where the miscalculation. I have an assumption of where the miscalculation is coming from, but I don't know how you would ever celebrate a method. That'd be like celebrating combustion. I mean, combustion is a wonderful thing, right? It gives us internal combustion engines, and external combustion engines. But combustion is also used to shoot projectiles and to kill people. So you wouldn't celebrate combustion. You might celebrate certain uses of it, but even then, you'd celebrate maybe an internal combustion engine until one is used to mow down people, and then maybe you wouldn't celebrate that one. So combustion itself is not something you would celebrate. You might celebrate people that use combustion for good purposes, and science is similar. Science is not something to be celebrated. Science has been used to do some of the greatest evils in the 20th century in all the world. So I'm not sure what it is that they're celebrating, other than I think that they've drawn some conclusions about issues that they think are very important, and then they simply say science is the reason for those conclusions. So for example, you might say, I believe in environmentalism and global warming, and I've used science to show that global warming is true, and therefore I want to celebrate the fact that we know about global warming because of science. Well, that may be true, but we've got multiple problems with that thinking. First of all, science doesn't prove anything. And this is a real misunderstanding, and it's shocking to me that people, even in the scientific community, and in the media, for heaven's sake, just don't understand what science is. Science doesn't prove anything. If science were to prove something, that thing is no longer scientific. I'm trying to think of a good example. I mean, we have mathematics, but even there, math is about proof. Science doesn't prove that something is true or something is false. Science simply talks about whether something's possible or not possible. So the minute something is proven to be absolutely true, it's no longer the field of science. It now becomes what we say in epistemology or in philosophy, deductive. If we know this is absolutely true, 2 plus 2 equals 4, that's no longer scientific. That belongs to a separate category now of deductive truths that are by definition true. But science is a matter of induction. Science is a process by which we discover what's likely and not likely. So we investigate, let's say we look at 500 different examples of zebras, and we try to find out what really makes a zebra a zebra. And so we look at the 500 examples, and we inductively say, well, for the most cases, most all zebras have this, and so for this quality is true of all zebras. But there could be a zebra born tomorrow that doesn't have that quality, in which case science has to reevaluate. This is called induction. Induction is just a process of learning. Induction has two things I think we can say about. One, induction never arrives at a certain conclusion. If it does, it's no longer induction and therefore no longer science. Now, there is a way of thinking that is deductive. In other words, it starts with a premise which is absolutely true, and then it draws out conclusions from that. And we call that religion. In religion, we say, God has said this, and God declares this to be true. And that's my starting point. And I can celebrate that starting point, and then I can apply it. So if God says, do not lie, or if God says, I am holy, or if God tells me to love, then I never doubt that first premise. Now I go out to live that love out in my life, and the people I meet and things that I do. But the reason I go out and love people is because I have that deductive truth which tells me to love, and I don't doubt that. That's my starting point. What seems to be happening in things like, let's just use global warming as an example, is we start from the premise that science has proven that in fact carbon dioxide is leading directly to the warming of the planet. That's an absolute truth. Now what we do is we want to apply that theory, that truth, that deductive statement to other parts of our lives. So if if global warming is absolutely happening, therefore we need to curtail carbon over here, and we need to examine how heat from carbon warming, or the trigger of carbon that's helping to warm the globe, is in fact leading to these problems and whatever it is. But we don't doubt the first premise that global warming is happening. That's not science. Science is an inductive approach to say it's likely occurring. But the minute we've proven that it's occurring, and we know that it's an absolute statement of fact, then it leaves the arena of science and it goes somewhere else. Now there's another arena of thought. So science is really an inductive approach, asking what's possible and what's likely, and re-examining the facts and the truths to get a better and better picture of what's likely. But science always knows, as a methodology, it's always aware of the fact that a scientific conclusion can be wrong. Because there could be another instance tomorrow. There could be a factor playing into the environment that would in fact curtail warming. We don't know what that is. Or a fact could happen tomorrow that would alter the global warming patterns or the temperature patterns around the globe. So science doesn't say that global warming has to happen, or science doesn't say that certain gene developments have to occur, or science doesn't say that a certain behavior is right, or that homosexuality is okay, or that heterosexuality is the only thing you can do. It doesn't say any of those things. Once you have a fact like that becomes deductive and absolutely true, well, that's just not science anymore. So I think we can say that about science. We have to reduce it or return it to where it belongs, and that is induction. And the other thing I think that is happening is this: not only is there a misunderstanding there, but that also that it's become a religion in the sense that people want to believe certain things about the world. They want to believe certain things about gender. They want to believe certain things about climate. They want to believe certain things about ethics, about being kind and being nice. They want to believe certain things about being fair and equal. And so we don't have a framework to prove that we have to do these things. Why should someone go out and be kind? Why? Why, if they're going to die tomorrow and their whole life experience evaporates into nothingness, once they're dead, they never come back. What's the reason to be good? Why should I have to go out and be nice? Why should I be kind or equal? Why should I care about gender differences? Why should I care about the environment? So religion really is the one place where you can turn to, and it makes certain absolute statements. This is right and that's wrong. And I say, well, if I want to be a Christian, or if I want to be a Muslim, or if I want to be a Hindu or a Buddhist, then I have to abide by these principles. If you don't have those, then what's the incentive for saying you have to be good? And I think what's happening is, in the absence of religion, people have found the conclusions of science to replace those religious beliefs. So now they say, science has shown that diversity of gender identity is an absolute fact of genetic whatever. And therefore, that becomes the new standard, which we can't violate. The new principle, the new ethical standard. It becomes deductive, it becomes, in a sense, religious. That science now says global warming is bad and industrialization is the cause, that's absolute. And I want to go march for the fact that we can't do this anymore. But that's turning science into religion. That's making it declare deductive statements, or statements that are first basic principles, which you then can deduce from that other things: how to behave, how to act, how to think, how to be good. The idea that science as a method shines light on the world in darkness is absurd. Science is the cause for darkness in so many cases. Just think of what happens as we experiment with explosives. Where do you think the nuclear weapons came from that destroyed Nagasaki and Hiroshima? Where do you think the weapons came from that destroyed Europe in World War I and World War II? Science. I mean, it's a method of experimentation. You can use it for anything. I could use science as a weapon to drop on an industrialized society and wipe out all lights and electricity. That's also science. Science doesn't say we have to be good. Science doesn't say that you have to start with the premise to love one another. That's a religious concept. What science says is, I can try experimentally to, by induction, discover how things may or may not work. And I can use that for evil and I can use that for good. So I think this gets tied to all sorts of other things too, and maybe I'll do a video later just about evolution itself too, because I think there's, in so many of these things which have become central cores of our secular thinking in our society, as long as we dub them scientific, they automatically become true and important. And I think there's a negative reason for that, because science stands up to religion. That I want to get into in another video, so I'll spend some time on that there. But as you watch these science marches recently, just ask yourself, or ask them, or look up if you can to define what the word science means, and see if really that's something worth marching about.